The WNBA is heading into the most important labor fight in its history, and the stakes could not be higher. What started as a routine opt-out of the collective bargaining agreement has now turned into a very real threat of a WNBA lockout in 2025. Back in October 2024, the WNBPA, the Players' Union, officially exercised its right to opt out of the current CBA. Since then, negotiations with league owners have stalled, and both sides are dug in, especially over one core issue: revenue sharing. On the surface, this is a simple question. How much of the money coming into the WNBA should go to the players who are actually on the court? But once you start unpacking the numbers, the media coverage, and the risks owners say they're facing, you realize just how complicated this WNBA-CBA negotiation has become. Let's start with the baseline. Right now, WNBA players receive roughly 7% of total league revenue. Not 17, not 27, 7. By comparison, NBA players are guaranteed 50% of all basketball-related income, a term that covers media deals, ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, concessions, and more. That 50-50 split is the model most fans think of when they hear revenue sharing in pro basketball. The WNBA players are not just asking for a raise. They're fighting to close that enormous gap. And this is where the argument over profitability comes crashing in. If you follow the WNBA lockout coverage, you probably heard the same line repeated again and again. The league isn't profitable. The business is unstable. Owners lose money every year. NBC Sports has called the WNBA an unstable business. Bleacher Report has stated bluntly, the league isn't profitable yet. Sports Illustrated and The Athletic have echoed the same message, with The Athletic quoting anonymous sources who claim that the league and its teams combined haven't been profitable since the WNBA's inception. That would mean 29 straight years of losses. But here's the problem. None of those statements come with actual financial documentation. No audited books. No public breakdowns. Just anonymous quotes and broad claims. The one piece of reporting that keeps getting cited over and over is a New York Post article from October 2024, dropped right before the CBA opt-out deadline, when both sides were trying to shape the public narrative. That story claimed the WNBA would lose $40 million in that season alone. The source? A single anonymous NBA executive, quoted as saying the WNBA owes the NBA so much we won't see any windfall for years. That anonymous quote has become the cornerstone of the unprofitable league narrative that owners and some media outlets are now leaning on during these WNBA-CBA negotiations. And the timing is hard to ignore. It landed right as players were deciding whether to opt out, and it came from someone with a clear financial interest in keeping player costs low. At the same time, the league is celebrating what it openly calls the most successful season in WNBA history. Caitlin Clark's arrival as a rookie drove record-breaking ratings, sold-out arenas, and unprecedented attention to women's basketball. Ticket prices surged. Viewership numbers shattered previous highs. Merchandise sales spiked, not just for the Indiana Fever, but league-wide. From a visibility and engagement standpoint, the 2024 season was a breakthrough. On top of that, WNBA expansion is surging. New franchises in San Francisco, Toronto, and Portland have reportedly paid around $250 million each in expansion fees just to join the league. So you have to ask a basic business question. If the WNBA truly loses $40 million a year and has supposedly never turned a profit, why are ownership groups lining up to write $250 million checks to get in? Billion-dollar investors don't typically throw $250 million at something they believe is fatally broken. Those expansion fees strongly suggest that the long-term valuation of the WNBA, especially in this new era of growth, is a lot higher than the "we're losing money every year" storyline would lead you to believe. Somewhere between the anonymous $40 million loss and the $250 million buy-in is the truth about what this league is really worth. Now, there's another number owners are absolutely looking at, and it's one they bring up quietly behind closed doors: 55%. That's how much WNBA viewership reportedly dropped when Caitlin Clark got hurt during the 2024 season. When Clark was sidelined with injury, more than half of the TV audience disappeared almost overnight. That is not a slow decline or a minor dip. That's a collapse directly tied to the availability of one player. From a fan's perspective, that just shows how massive Caitlin Clark's impact on WNBA ratings has been. From an owner's perspective, it's terrifying. Put yourself in their chair for a moment. Players are asking for a true revenue sharing model, something modeled on the NBA's 50-50 split. That would guarantee them a substantial percentage of all income, regardless of whether ratings go up or down, whether sponsorships spike or drop, whether ticket sales boom or soften. But you've just watched your league's viewership get cut in half the moment your biggest star was injured. You have to plan for what happens if that injury had been worse. What if she misses all of next season? What if, for any reason, the Caitlin Clark boom fizzles quicker than expected? From that vantage point, locking into a large guaranteed revenue share feels like a huge risk. Owners look at the NBA, where popularity is spread across dozens of household names and long-established franchises, and they don't see the same stability in the WNBA yet. They see a business still heavily dependent on one or two megastars. That doesn't mean their numbers are right, but explains why they're cautious. Now, here's what the league says it has put on the table. WNBA officials have publicly floated a proposal to triple player salaries while maintaining a form of conditional revenue sharing. On the surface, that sounds generous. For the average fan, triple the salaries and offer revenue sharing sounds like a big win for the players. But the details matter. The revenue sharing component only kicks in if the league hits certain preset growth targets. And according to the league's own prior admissions, those benchmarks have never been reached. Not once. Some of that, to be fair, is because the 2020 COVID shutdown made those goals mathematically impossible. But even in normal years, those targets have been structured in ways that make them extremely difficult to hit. They function more like stretch goals than realistic yearly expectations. And even if the WNBA does finally hit those growth benchmarks, players would only share in the overage, the revenue above that target. They would get just a portion of a slice, not a percentage of the whole pie. In other words, technically, yes, there is revenue sharing in the offer. Practically, it's been designed so that players rarely, if ever, see a dollar from it. That's why you'll hear players and union reps talk about the difference between clean sharing and what's being proposed now. Clean sharing is simple. Players get an agreed-upon percentage of all revenue, like NBA players do with that 50-50 split. The current WNBA proposal is the opposite. A complicated formula that lets the league say publicly, we offered revenue sharing, while the actual payouts are either tiny or non-existent. Under the triple salary offer, even with those higher wages, players would still sit around 7 to 10% of total league revenue, far below the standard their NBA counterparts enjoy. That's why the WNBPA is skeptical. They are not reacting to headline. They're reacting to the fine print. From the owner's side, the logic goes like this. The WNBA has a long track record of reported financial losses. The NBA has subsidized operations for years. Expansion fees and new TV interests are promising. But this growth might be fragile, especially if it's driven by a small handful of stars. From that view, committing right now to a 50-50 WNBA revenue sharing model would be, in their words, financial suicide. They want a few more years of data to see if the post-Caitlin Clark boom is truly sustainable. So they frame their position as a reasonable compromise, significantly higher salaries immediately, with the possibility of more money later if and only if the league crosses certain growth thresholds. The players see something very different. They see a league that just had its best year ever, that's selling expansion franchises at $250 million a pop, that's drawing record national TV numbers and sold-out crowds, and yet still claims it can't afford to pay more than 7% of revenue to the people on the court. They see owners constantly citing losses but refusing to open the books and prove them. They see media repeating profitability claims based on one New York Post article and one anonymous executive with every incentive in the world to keep salaries low. And they see a conditional revenue system that has never once paid out. At the same time, WNBA players are being told to grow the game, but many still have to play overseas during the off-season to make a livable income. They argue that it's impossible to build a strong, stable WNBA product at home if your stars are constantly exhausted, injured, or forced into grueling year-round schedules just to cover their bills. That's the chicken and egg problem at the heart of this WNBA lockout threat. Owners say, prove the league is stable and profitable long-term, and then we'll talk about a bigger revenue share. Players say, we can't get there until you invest properly in us now. In salaries, in marketing, in infrastructure, the same way the NBA once did with its stars. The truth is, the NBA didn't become a global powerhouse by underpaying Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, or LeBron James, and waiting to see if things worked out. The league poured money into its talent, built marketing campaigns around them, and aligned incentives so that when the NBA grew, everyone, from owners to role players, shared in that success. That's the model WNBA players are pushing toward. Not just more money in 2025, but a system that lets them share fairly in the long-term upside they're helping create. Owners, for their part, are betting that players will eventually accept triple salaries without true revenue sharing, especially if a lockout threatens their own earnings and careers. Players are betting that the league, ESPN, sponsors, and new expansion owners cannot afford a full-blown WNBA lockout right when public interest is exploding. Both sides are gambling. At its core, this fight is not really about whether the WNBA is profitable at this exact moment. It's about who benefits most when it becomes undeniably profitable in the near future. Do owners capture almost all of that upside after years of relatively low player costs? Or do the women who are on the court every night, drawing the ratings, selling the tickets, carrying the risk, finally get to operate under a structure that looks more like what exists on the men's side? As fans, when you see headlines about a looming WNBA lockout, it's easy to fall into the old, greedy players versus struggling league narrative. But look closer at what's actually happening. You have owners charging $250 million to new investors while citing anonymous $40 million losses they won't document. You have a league that watched its viewership jump to record highs, then drop 55% when Caitlin Clark went down, a number that should be a wake-up call to invest in more stars, build deeper storylines, and strengthen the entire product, not a reason to hold back on paying players fairly. You have a CBA offer that trumpets revenue sharing, but sets benchmarks that have never been reached and might not be anytime soon. And you have a generation of WNBA players who understand that this moment, coming off the biggest year in league history, in the middle of expansion and new media deals, is their best chance to change the system. If they don't push now, when will they ever have more leverage? The next few months will tell us who blinks first. Will owners move closer to a real WNBA revenue sharing model? Or will players be forced to pick between accepting a deal they believe is unfair or sitting out and risking the league momentum? For the sake of women's basketball, fans will be hoping both sides find a way to avoid a lockout. But whatever happens, it's important to understand what this fight is truly about. Not just this season's bottom line, but the future, how value is shared in a league that is finally starting to show the world how big it can be. Let me know in the comments where you stand on this. Do you think WNBA owners are being responsible and cautious, or are they hiding behind vague, lost claims while players are the heavy lifting? And what happens to all this momentum if we really do see a WNBA lockout? Stick around, because this story is nowhere near finished.